Hello YouTube, this is Magnolia Mo and I'm back with another video. In today's video I'm going to talk about my thoughts and my impressions of this little DAC. It's the AudioQuest Dragonfly Red. I've had this in my system for a few years now, I think about 3 years, and with my recent videos that I did about DACs, connecting a DAC into your receiver processor, and and how you can improve the sound quality using regular DACs, I thought this would be a good time to do a review of the AudioQuest Dragonfly Red and how it compares to my trusted Pre-Box S2 digital from Project. All right, so let's get on with it. It comes, obviously you get the manual with it, for both the red and the black, and also gives you an option to download and use your desktop device manager application, which is useful for software upgrades and things like that, and pretty much that's it. I've never, I think I only had to update the software initially when I plugged it in, but it's a straight plug and play. What I love about the Dragonfly is that you can actually see the colors change, right? Depending on the frequency, right? So if green is 444.1 kilohertz, and then blue is 48 kilohertz. Amber is for your 88.2, your basic DSD sample rate, and then magenta is the 96 kilohertz, and then purple is for the MQA renderer. That is really useful, right, when it comes to knowing, like, if you're like me, you want to know that the right sampling rate is being is being rendered and is being reproduced as it should be. So the manual's helpful, as far as the setup is concerned. It kind of walks you through the entire setup, and gives you some additional details. Here's that jitterbug again. Whether you want to use it or not, that's completely up to you. I'm not endorsing it, nor am I denying its existence. All right. So here are the specifications for the Dragonfly Red. For this particular DAC has native resolution up to 24-bit 96 kilohertz, which means that it is just PCM only. It does not accept DSD format, and if your PCM is over 96 kilohertz, you're gonna it's gonna essentially chop it down to the 96 kilohertz overall sampling rate, right? And in certain cases, depending on the software that you're running, you're gonna have to set the software to only output 96 kilohertz. The output, it has an output of 2.1 volts for your headphones, as far as, and that output is plenty to drive a wide variety of headphones. From a DAC chip perspective, it has the ESS Saber 9016 chip compared to the dual ESS 9038s that are on the Project Pre-Box S2 digital. So from a DAC standpoint, it is a minimum phase fast roll off, right? So what that would mean is some of the transients or some of the high frequencies are going to get rolled off quicker. You may or may not hear the difference, but it's just know that it's fast roll off, whereas the 9038 DACs have a slow roll off, which is also available on the Pre-Box S2. And then just goes through some of the other specifications here. It is upgradable. Firmware is upgradable via the PC, desktop app, and it does do MQA rendering. Again, MQA rendering, it is going to, the advantage of this particular of having the MQA renderer on the Dragonfly Red, the main advantage there is that when it comes to title the MQA files are sent in a 44 kilohertz or a 48 kilohertz packet, right? So it's going to accept that full file regardless of the overall frequency or sampling rate. All right, so here's the Dragonfly Red. It's small, so you have your 3.5 millimeter jack here, which you could go directly into your headphones with, or you can use a 3.5 millimeter to RCA to go into your processor, and then you got your USB connector. Pretty straightforward, and tiny. Compare that to the pre-box S2 digital. This one, they're both very small, but this one's slightly heavier because it has more components, and it's got obviously a solid body, aluminum body around it. Like they're both pretty small. So now going back to the Dragonfly, I actually like connecting the Dragonfly with the AudioQuest Jitterbug. Don't laugh. I know this is a very questionable product, but from my standpoint, I use it with the Dragonfly when I'm going into the PC, because I'm just afraid that there's additional noise introduced, right? Because you are going to use the analog stage here. Now, it's one half a dozen other, because Audio Science Review completely trashed the Jitterbug, but then Stereophile.com, they swear by it. So I am of the opinion it's better to have it and it not do anything than not to have it and something else goes wrong, right? From a sound standpoint. So that's why I use it. Now from a connection standpoint, it's fairly basic. You have a few options here. So let's start with the first one. The most basic one is you can plug in the AudioQuest into your into this iPhone dongle, basically, and your smart device or your iOS device, and you can connect this directly into your iPhone or your iPad or your Mac. I think not the Mac, but iPad and your iPhone. Mac, you can use a mini USB, mini USB connector, but or you can just go direct USB. But and then from there, then you can kind of plug in your headphone and you can enjoy the DACs built in on here. I know it's a sort of a questionable setup if you just want to listen to your headphones, but only if you're sitting down and if you want to enjoy it, right? That's when you connect it that way. The other option, again, like the way I do it is I plug in. This is a 3.5 millimeter to an RCA. Again, it's AudioQuest. Just plug that in directly in here, and voila, you're good to go. So now then the other end you can plug into, and I'll show you, you can plug into your receiver or to your amplifier, not amplifier, sorry, to your receiver or your processor, and enjoy the DAC that's built in here. All right, so that's about it for the setup. Let's talk more about my actual experience listening to the Dragonfly and how it compares with the pre-box S2. Okay. So I've had the Dragonfly Red and the Project S2 pre-box in my system for a couple years now. So I know, I'm very familiar actually with their sonic signature. So I know which tracks to actually pick if I want to, show the differences between the two DACs. And that's what I did here in this case, right? So starting with Harold Faltermeyer's Axel F. It's a 2016 Composer's Cut. It is on Tidal. It's available as a hi-fi album only, so it's 44.1 kilohertz, so not high sampling rate, but it's still very good. The recording is very good. Um, the the synthesizers on this recording, right, from the Dragonfly Red, came across, with a lot more body. It had a lot more richness, and they were more forward, right? And synthesizers and obviously the percussions, and so on and so forth. So everything, kind of made it more enjoyable from the Dragonfly Red. Compared to the pre-Box S2, which which has a very laid back, neutral sound signature. So the sound field, does not kind of cross over, beyond your front speakers, on that DAC. In certain recordings, if the recording lends itself, it will. But so it doesn't really add, any texture, any richness to the sound when it doesn't need to, right? Whereas the Dragonfly, it just made that recording come alive a little bit more, for me, and it made it more enjoyable for me, than the Project did. So that was the first one. And then the next one, Michael Jackson Thriller, the 25th Super Deluxe edition of Thriller. It is also available on Tidal. It's in MQA format, and the maximum resolution on that album is 96 kilohertz. So if you're not familiar with how MQA works, I mean, the actual track, or the packet is, or the track is streamed, it's folded into half the sample rates, right? So if it's 96 kilohertz, it's going to get folded into 248 kilohertz. If it's 192 kilohertz, it still go through the folding process, but gets folded into a 48 kilohertz packet, and then the DAC then unfolds it on the DAC end, right? So it makes makes easier streaming. Be that it may, I understand online, and in general, right, there could be issues associated with that. So, but for this particular discussion, I just want to focus on the sound, right? So Billie Jean, to me, like, it's one of my all-time favorite tracks. The snaps, for Michael Jackson, right? When he's snapping on the AudioQuest Dragonfly Red, those snaps are more vivid. They're more vivid. You can actually hear them, more clearly compared to the pre-Box S2, again, which I said is more neutral. So the snaps are there, but they are, with the singer, with Michael, right? Like, when he's snapping, you can tell he's snapping, and he's the one, and it's part of the overall, composition, right? In the Dragonfly's case, you can actually hear him, hear those snaps kind of in the air. So it adds more airiness, again, more richness. Maybe it's not needed, but it did. And it made it more, enjoyable again. So so I'm not saying that the Dragonfly Red sounds better than the pre-Box S2. But I am saying that, right, in a way where it's more enjoyable, right? But if you want to stay true to the track, I would say the pre-Box S2 is portraying more, of the sound that particular track has. The snare drums, accompanied, by the hi-hat, they're joined by a shaker, right, in the beginning. It goes, right? So that stereo image, right, going from left to right, was more vivid on the Dragonfly Red. It's more pronounced, it's more forward, right? In case of Billie Jean, if you really think about it, this whole composition is hot, right? From starting with the whole melody, basically the entire arrangement is hot. Starting from the melody, the lyrics, the vocals, they're all meant to be hot. So rhythmically, sonically, the minimal instrumentation kind of lends itself to being hot, in my opinion, because you could hear everything, right, on that track. So whether it's the pre-Box S2, whether it's the Dragonfly Red, you ultimately get the same sense, right? As to the richness and the hotness, right, of that track. But the Dragonfly, I think, went a little step further than, in my opinion, than it should. So it's good if you enjoy that type of forward sounding DAC, then this might be the DAC for you. All right. So next was Norah Jones, "Come Away with Me." This one, also on Tidal, is MQA 96 kilohertz, and so this one was, is an iffy track, only because you have to be familiar with Norah Jones, her voice, how the album itself, it's a very mellow album. So from a vocal standpoint, I didn't find any, I still don't find any issues with the Dragonfly Red. The vocals are rendered perfectly. They're centered. The brush swirling on the snare drum, is clear, but more forward and a little bit more vivid, right? So this is where I do tend to side with the Pre-Box S2. I do prefer that neutral sound of the Pre-Box S2 compared to the Dragonfly Red. But again, there's nothing wrong. There is richness, on the Dragonfly, through the Dragonfly. But I prefer the track the way it's meant to be. Which is mellow and which is, slightly backwards, right, from the plane of the speakers. And then lastly, Billie Eilish, "Bad Guy." We all know the amount of bass on this particular track, but what I actually like about the track is the dueling, vocals, right? Billie Eilish's vocals, between your left and right speakers during the song, and to me, like both Pre-Box S2 and Dragonfly Red, they sound amazing on this particular track. It is MQA, but it is not high resolution MQA CD quality, so 44.1 kilohertz. Now, with the Dragonfly Red, the sound was so much forward that it almost sounded like the dueling vocals were right in right in front of me, as opposed to being set back, with the rest of the ensemble, right? But either way, it sounds great. The bass was very much pronounced on the Dragonfly Red compared to the Pre-Box S2. So that's it. So those are my thoughts, and impressions, around the listening tests over the last couple of years between the two DACs. So those are my thoughts and my impressions of the AudioQuest Dragonfly Red as compared to my other DAC, which is the Project S2 Pre-Box Digital. From having the two in my system for around 2 years, right? So I can comfortably provide my complete assessment on the two of these, and I've kept them in my system for a reason. I like the sound of both of them, and from a musicality perspective, the Dragonfly Red definitely is worth the $229 price tag that it has. I think you can get it for cheaper now as well. But if you don't wanna spend that much on a DAC and still want to be able to use the flexibility, right? You can connect it to your iOS device or to your Android device and enjoy music off of your mobile device, iPad, Surface, laptop. It can be configured. It can be hooked up to anything that's playing digital files, and it will take, you'll be able to take full advantage of the great DACs that are built in to this particular, rather small DAC right here. So, all right. So, hope you guys like this video and this review. Be on the lookout for more reviews and videos such as this one. And in the meantime, please do not forget to like, subscribe, share my videos, hit that bell notification so that you are notified of new content that I post on a fairly regular basis, on a weekly basis. And then, until next time, YouTube, see you later.